What's up everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kelvin's Garage. Today I want to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is lubing your car. Now what do I mean by lubing your car? Well, for some of you old timers, or maybe even just 2 or 3 decades ago, you may remember this phrase when driving past some auto repair shop in the city or wherever. And that phrase, that sign which used to hang right at the auto repair garage would say, oil, lube, and filter. So what do I mean by that? Well, I know what the oil and the filter part is. That's pretty self-explanatory. But what about the lube? Okay? So for a long time, I've seen this phrase kind of disappear out of existence. But the lube is very important. And over time, I started to think to myself, what is the lube? So I went in and I started delving into looking into what it means to lube your car. And lubing basically means to lube your chassis. Okay, maybe someone else has a different interpretation, but to me it's always meant lube your chassis. And for some reason, over time, this kind of phrase and this kind of concept of lubing your chassis has pretty much faded away. Or I don't know if it's just me, but maybe you have not heard that for a while. So lubing your chassis is a really important part of maintaining your car's health and the suspension health and the suspension feel as it drives down the road. Okay, so today we are going to lube the chassis. So what do I mean by lube your car? And it's not what you're thinking. Well, basically what has happened is that you've got this creaky noise. Okay, it creaks when you hang to the left, hang to the right. And what has happened is that the suspension needs lube, okay? The suspension needs lube, believe it or not. And so if you don't lube your car, the suspension regularly, it starts drying up in between the rubber gaskets and between the rubber grommets that your suspension relies on, around the strut area, around the sway bars, around the links. Okay, so it's very important to lube your car from time to time so that it basically makes everything function just a little bit better. The handling and road dynamics feel a lot better, and you won't get this weird creakiness when you hang the corner and so forth. And it'll just result in an overall better ride for your vehicle. Well, here it is, my fabulous 2006 Honda Civic. Okay, so what do I mean by lubing the suspension parts? Well, there are a number of points of interest that we have to keep in mind when it comes to lubing the suspension. All right, now it may be a little bit hard to see, but we've got our strut back there, okay, and it's the entire strut setup with the springs and the strut casing and the strut inside. And we've also got around here near the bottom of the vehicle all of the sway bar hardware, sway bar links. Okay, we've got the joints here, and of course we've got the other side as well. Okay, and maybe it's a little bit easier to see here, but we've got the sway bar link here as well. All right, anywhere where there's a rubber bushing or a grommet, okay, we need to spray that down very well with our silicone lube. Pop open the hood of your vehicle and you will also see some very, very important and critical areas to lube, okay? It's not obvious here, but I'm going to show you in just a second. Okay, so after you've got the hood open, we're going to look at the strut tops, okay? So over here, there's a little panel here that actually hides the strut top. Okay, and that is an area that we want to lube. Okay, so we're going to open up this flap here, remove this little weather stripping, just a little bit of it. Okay, and there's a panel here, we're gonna pull it out. Voila, voila. And I bet you didn't even know that came out. Okay, so once we remove that little panel, we can see the strut top, okay? The strut top, the mounting point for the strut. And we can see that maybe there's some, crap that's been stuck in there, leaves and stuff. But usually you'll have this rubber covering, okay? And what we can do is we can take this off, okay? We're gonna take that off, okay? Comes off fairly easily. And we can see that the top of the strut is exposed. Okay, it's exposed just like that. And on the other side too, we will do something very similar. Push this weather stripping slightly out of the way, remove this flap on that piece of weather stripping, and then take this entire panel and pull it off. Okay, and if we take a look inside here, well, here the rubber top here that protected it, I lost that a long time ago. Okay, so I lost that when I replaced the front coilover struts assembly, but you know, we can access this area no problem. Now, first of all, if you've got a shop vac handy, what you can do is you can clean up that area a little bit. As you saw, we had some leftover leaves and some other debris that's stuck in that area, so let's suck that out. Now the next thing we need is, well, lube, okay? So this is what I got from my favorite auto parts store, as you know by now, Walmart. And this is basically just heavy duty silicone CRC, the cheapest one you can find. Now, this works pretty well for me, so we're just gonna use it. And this is the silicone spray. Now, there's other kinds like the lithium and so forth. I personally like the silicone because it's a little bit thinner and it can get into those crevices a little bit better. It may not remain thick and viscous like the lithium, but you know, we can just do it again in the future. The reason why I don't use a thick lithium stuff is that it stays there and it kind of gets caked on, and it just really over time looks horrible, even though it's not in the gaps where it's supposed to go. So I prefer this silicone heavy duty lube. Now, we can easily just take our spray can and just go at it all over the place and just spray it, you know, on all the rubber strut top mounts, on all the sway bar link rubber bushings on the bottom. But you know what? We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it a better way. Now, one of the things that happens is that when your car is just sitting there, it's under load, right? So the car is actually loading the suspension. And what that means is that all the bushings are being compressed, and all the suspension springs and struts are being compressed. Okay, so it's very difficult to get the spray lubricant where you need it to be. Okay, so you can spray it and, you know, cross your fingers and hope that it seeps in between the car vehicle body and the bushing. But you know what? Maybe it won't. Okay, maybe you won't be doing anything at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to unload the suspension, and then we're going to spray the spray lube. And what that does is it really allows the spray lube to get in between those rubber bushings and the body of the car or the suspension part, wherever it needs to be. And how are we going to unload our suspension? Well, you've guessed it. We are going to jack up the vehicle, okay? And so by jacking up the vehicle, you're basically taking the load off of the springs and the bushing, okay? And what that allows is these micro gaps that will enable the lubricant to flow really into that bushing and between the bushing and the body of the vehicle. So we are going to get my favorite jacking point here in the front of the vehicle, and that makes it easier to access the sway bar link later. But we're gonna put the jack right here on the tow hook. Okay, let's see if we can get it. If not, we'll have to go to the side. Okay, there we go. So we've actually got the tow hook area, and we're gonna jack up the vehicle right here. Okay, all right. And as you all know, what I like to do is I like to use my second jack. So we've got our second jack right here, and we're gonna jack it up on this tow hook over here on the other side. you can already hear the car squeaking and unloading the weight of the vehicle from the suspension in such a way where we will be able to lube it up. Remember to make these two fairly even so the weight is not completely on one side. Okay, we'll adjust that a little bit, and we see that this one is pretty well adjusted, and we're ready to lube. And now with our spray lube, we're going to go liberally on the strut top mount. Okay, and I'm just gonna spray it all over here. Now some of you guys may be worried that, oh, I'm spraying this top bolt here. Now if it's secured enough, you probably don't have to worry about the lube creating some kind of adverse effect and, you know, causing it to slip or anything like that. So I don't think that's too much of a worry. So I think just go liberally on this area and it should be good to go. So try to get the little straw in here in that little crevice and just go at it. Here's a better angle. Just gonna stick this in there. Just go all over, okay, all over. In the back over there. Here we're going to do the other side, okay? And you know, if you do this once every couple months or once a year, you know, it's okay to go a little more liberal. I don't think it hurts. You know, just make sure you get all the area and basically saturate the whole thing. It may be a little bit hard because of all these hoses and flaps here that are kind of blocking it, but you get the idea. Now another advantage of lifting the car on jacks before spraying it with lube is you see how much this has decompressed. Okay, the strut has decompressed quite a bit. In fact, the whole suspension assembly now is hanging by the strut top mount, so actually we can have really good access to the area above here, okay, kind of where the strut top mount will interact with the body of the car. We can really get in there with our spray. So we're gonna, I know it's hard to see, but we're just gonna go at it with the spray in this area. Okay, hopefully we can get some lube in the appropriate place. Okay, and we also have a lot more room here, okay, on the spring mount. Okay, on the spring mount here, there's like a, should be some kind of a rubber here or something. Okay, and we can really go at it with our silicone spray. Okay, you can see I'm really saturating it here, and that is a critical area because that's where the metal, there's a lot of the car's weight on the spring and on this metal mount here. So we really want to lube this up as much as possible. Now over here there's like the bellows, and you know, if you're really curious, what you can do is you can lift it. Okay, you can lift the bellows. In some cases you can take a look. I don't often recommend that, but you can technically do it. Look at the bellows and look at what's under it, okay? And you'll be able to see the shock itself. Okay, but it's not too necessary to do this. You know, maybe you can spray some lube right here if you want to, but yeah, you can just see that that's the bellows, which is a dust cover protecting this junction here. Okay, and all you need to do is just pull it back down to get it back over this little metal tabs here. But yeah, just giving you guys a look here. What you can do is you can spray this area too that's hidden under the bellows. I don't think it causes any harm, but yeah, why not? Okay, pull the bellows back down, or the dust cover back down. and over this tab area here. Make sure you get it over so it doesn't pop up while you're driving. And yeah, basically it's back to where it belongs. And we're here on the passenger side. So if you see here, that's where the sway bar to body bushing is. And we're just going to give that a good spray as well. All over this area here. Okay. Same thing on the driver's side, okay? So we're gonna heavily get this mount area right here. And you know, it's a good time to really even inspect this area. And you can see if anything is happening here. If this rubber which surrounds the spring is cracking in any way. You know, this little lube here will give it an extra layer of protection, at least for the time being. So just go at it with some of the lube all over. Spray it real good. You know, we've got our bellows situation here, and yeah, maybe we can just do this side too. Take the bellows over the tabs and kind of spray it a little bit. Inspect it, you know, make sure nothing is going wrong with the bellows area. Okay. And pull it back down over the tabs. Of course, if you can get up there in the strut tower area, you know, go ahead and go for it. You know, maybe you can hit it with some of the lube, but it might be hard from this lower angle here. Just try your best. And of course, we've got the sway bar bushing here on the driver's side as well. We're just gonna go at that very liberally. Make sure it's got the proper lubrication from both sides. We're gonna get it from that side too. Just kind of get it all over. Eventually it'll seep in, I hope. Okay, yeah, just like that. Now, if you watched our episode on the control arm replacement, there are two big mounting points for the control arm. One which is right here, okay? One which is on the other side. And you may have a little bit of trouble accessing this area. What you could do is you could remove the entire wheel and go for it. Another alternative is you can turn the wheel. You can turn the wheel to the left and then to the right, and that could help you access both of those points. Okay, with our steering wheel turned, we can now access these points here, okay? So we can access this area of the control arm and spray it liberally with our lube on that bushing. All right. And while we have the steering wheel turned to the right, we can move to the other side. And while we are on the other side, with the steering wheel turned to the right, we can access this bushing here. Now this is a bushing, you know, there isn't really any or too much of rubbing between the actual bushing and the body, but you know, it's good to give it some lube just to keep it moist. You know, we don't want these bushings to be cracking, so let's just keep it moist. Very gently get in your car and turn the wheel to the left. Remember, we still are on those jacks, so very, very gently turn the wheel all the way to the left. Okay, and try not to put too much weight on the vehicle when you sit inside of it. And with the tires turned to the left, we can now access this bushing here, okay, on the driver's side, and give it some spray lube. And when we go to the passenger side, now this bushing on the back of the control arm, that is now exposed, and we can hit that one with the spray lube. It's a little bit harder to see, but there it is. Just go at it with the silicone spray. Now some of you may do this one as well. Now the sway bar link, depending on what kind of sway bar link type you have, You know, you might have bushings which are lubricatable. Not always though, okay? Sometimes these are sealed, so you can't really even lubricate it, but you know, we'll just spray at it anyway. Probably won't hurt too much. But there is the sway bar link. And the sway bar link for the driver's side. If you have it, go for it. Mine I think are sealed, so it won't do anything, but depending on your kind, it might do something. Okay. Now don't forget to put everything back. We're going to put this strut mount cover back on. Okay, put this little plate back on where it belongs. Tabs go under here. Okay, just like so. And it snaps in. Okay. And then put these little rubber pieces back where they belong. Same thing on the other side. I didn't have a strut cover, but if you have one, please put it back on. Okay, as for the plate, put it back into place. We are going to put the tabs under here. Okay, snap it back in. Okay, and then put this weather strip back and this little flappy weather strip back as well. And our wheels are straight again. We didn't have to remove the front wheels to do this job. Okay, now all we need to do is let our car down. Little by little. And let the suspension compress. Okay, that's it. We are now done with the front. Okay, for the back, we jack up this side over here. Let the suspension decompress. And over here on the passenger side rear, we will jack up this side as well. And you only need to go as high as maybe when the tire just begins to lift off of the floor. Okay, we can see the tire just lifting off. Okay. Okay, so with the rear lifted now and the suspension decompressed, we can take a look at what we're working with. Okay, we've got the spring. All right, we've got the spring and the spring mount area. We've also got the strut, okay? You can see that right there. You can see the bushing, okay? And then we can also look up in the wheel well, and we can look at right there where the strut goes into the body area, okay? And we can come around here and look at the rear suspension arms, okay? The rear suspension arms. So let me just wiggle this in right here, and we will be able to see the, you can see right here the rear bushing for the control arm. And if we take a look back here inside the wheel well, from the other side we can see all the remaining suspension components. Looking from the rear of the car, we can see again the rear shock bushing, which attaches right here to this control arm. We've got the spring seat, okay? We can see the rubber which is squeezed between this control arm here, this arm here, suspension arm, and this spring here, and the rubber right here. And you see all the old crustiness here. That's actually lithium grease that I did a long time ago. and that's what I mean by when you use lithium grease, it stays kind of crusty looking. But we're gonna spray this whole area. Okay, if you take a look at the rear suspension, it's a little bit different from the front one, and I might even say it's a little more complicated because we've got another piece here, okay, on the upper part, this upper control arm here. There's another bushing here, okay, and if you look at where that attaches to, there's yet another one here, okay. And if you look way inside here beyond the spring, there's another mounting point somewhere up there as well. Okay, somewhere up there, right here where my finger is. Okay, so we're gonna just kind of douse this entire area with the silicone spray. And if you go to the other side of the suspension arm, there's of course this bushing right in here as well. Okay, so we're gonna douse this entire area with the silicone spray. Okay, here we go. We got this one. Okay, then we've got the shock top area right here. Just gonna stick the straw in there and see what we can do. Alright, and now we're back here now, and we're going to just spray each and every one of these. We'll get this right here. Okay, we're gonna get this upper link right here. Now, it technically would be better if we could take off the wheel, but we're not going to go that far today. I'm going to get this one right here. Maybe get it from a different angle so that the spray can go down and penetrate with gravity. Okay, and finally the strut, or the spring mount here, which is very important. This is an especially squeaky area, and luckily we've lifted the car because now we can stick the straw in between the spring and the rubber seat, and we can really get penetration that way. And even get under this rubber seat as well, so that it hits the metal seat. And we're gonna go for this one way deep in there. That one might be a little hard to get, but we're gonna try. If you can't, just you know, spray around it if possible. Whoops. Okay, be careful not to spray the exhaust pipe, okay? That's not gonna smell too good afterwards. If you've got an extra long straw, that might help as well. And another really important area is the upper spring mount, okay? So if you look here, we've got these little holes, these gaps in between the rubber spring mount and the body, and I like to just put the straw right in there, give it a couple of sprays, and just around the crevice here. Hard to film this while spraying, but you get the idea. Just go all over this area, this upper spring mount. Okay, yet there is another little one that I didn't mention earlier, and that's the rear sway bar link. So if we look here, we've got this little rear sway bar link right here. Okay, just hit that with the silicone spray as well. Okay, the other side should be pretty self-explanatory based on what we've done so far. Again, we've got the upper shock point. Give it some good sprays. We've got the inner suspension arm right here. And we've got all these components back here. And we've got all these components. Oh shit. And of course we've got all these components back here on this side. And the sway bar link back here as well. Don't forget that little guy. Okay, when you're done, gently let your vehicle down. Gently. And this side as well. That squeaking is the rear brakes, okay? It's not the suspension. Okay, and if you've got it, don't forget the sway bar links. You know, if you've got bushings which can be lubricated, don't forget to do that as well. We've also got these sway bar link bushings over here on that side. We can even access a little bit of the sway bar bushing from this angle. And maybe from this angle we could even get this upper one right here. Okay, this one that was a little bit elusive. Okay, we can just get our can into that region. Just get it from this angle. So you gotta work the different angles to get all the different locations. Don't be afraid to experiment with the different angles and perspectives to get the lubricant where you need it. Alright, and that's it. With just a little bit of elbow grease, a $3 can of spray lubricant, you can be back on the road with a smooth ride. Enjoy your day, and if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Kelvin's Garage.